Hi, everybody. I'm Andrew Kuykendall.
And I'm Don McCulley. Welcome to This Stuff is Complicated. By way of background, I started my career as an accountant at a bank, and I got into credit training. I read a lot of contracts back then between making loans and working out problem loans. I've been in the insurance industry for about 20 years, primarily focused on group captives. In 2010, wrote my first groups and employer stop-loss group captives, and I started this company, Medical Captor Underwriters, in 2015. But in 2010, I met a very important part of my life, a good friend and colleague of mine.
Thanks, Don. Andrew Kuykendall. Classically trained musician, conservatories, audio engineering means I was qualified to work for my dad's insurance agency. I spent 25 years as a consultant. I spent 4 years running a TPA, and I spent the last 4 years in captive management.
Well, that's great, Andrew. And today's shirt I see is Bob Weir and Wolf Brothers. Now, we've both seen this band, but never together. We've seen about 25 concerts together.
Yeah, this is one of the great things that we're able to do together is not only working together, but going around the country and seeing great music. This particular shirt was the trip for my wife's 50th birthday where, we had a great lunch and then we saw great music. And that's sort of the way it works for us.
Cool.
So one of the things that we've been working together for 15 years now is understanding the basic concepts of stop loss and group captives. And understanding the nuances, but there really just are some universal truths to this. At the end of the day, the most important thing to remember is stop loss is a reimbursement contract. Everything else flows from that point. This is really important because if you think about it, if you were to go see a doctor today and get an x-ray on your sprained ankle, is that claim going to be filed, adjudicated, and paid this afternoon?
No.
Absolutely not. There's what's called claims lag. It's inherent to the system. It works its way through, and it can be 30, 45 days. It can even extend up to multiple months, depending upon how complicated the claims are. So knowing that, it only makes sense that stop loss exists to reimburse claims because the claim has to be paid, the claim has to be measured, the claim has to be processed appropriately.
And Andrew, it's interesting you talk about this because when I got in this space, 9 out of 10 E&O claims came from stop loss. So when errors and omissions happens because of stop loss. So what we're talking about is the gist of it. The stop loss filing is actually a property and casualty filing. It's not an accident and health filing. It comes from property and casualty carriers. And so that really is what's different about stop loss also.
Exactly. And as a consultant, it's very important that you are providing the right level of coverage to your clients and that you understand the coverage that's there for them to have. Reading your contract, understanding it, and most importantly, when you need a reimbursement, it is a historically significant event for people. It is quite often their largest medical expenses. It's a very stressful time.
Right, but it also in the stop loss contract doesn't always say what it means because we're reimbursing based on the plan document, which is another whole separate other contract. Not to go down that rabbit hole, I want to stay on stop loss, but that's part of the complication here is not everything that's covered is in the stop loss contract.
Exactly. So there are things that you can do within the contract. Look for amendments as an example. To your plan document, look for something called plan mirroring within your stop loss contract that says whatever is in the document is going to be in the contract. The contract exists in and of itself. The amendments are what give you the extra protection and confidence you need as a consultant to make sure your clients are protected.
Yeah, I want to round out that with a little bit more technical explanation because remember, insurance is a contract of adhesion. It's not a commercial contract. You don't get to say no if you don't like the claim just because something is really expensive. That plan mirroring makes this a contract of adhesion versus just a promise to pay.
Exactly. And getting back to the moment of time when you do need that reimbursement, it's tough. There's a lot of requirements before you are able to get that money from the stop loss carrier. There's eligibility requirements. There's plan requirements. They need to make sure the documents line up. They need to review all the claims. It's not an instantaneous process.
And this is what you did when you ran a third-party administrator, all that regulatory stuff. So how long does it take to get that claim ready to be submitted?
Getting it ready to be submitted is going to depend upon when the providers file, depending upon when the networks have the repricing done or your own repricing engine, and then getting it uploaded into the claim system for the reimbursement from the carrier. Now, once the carrier gets it, realistically, 90% of the time, it'll be 10 to 12 business days. There are some allowances at the end of the year. There's a lot more filings than in the beginning of the year, so it may stretch to 15 to 20 business days.
This stuff's getting really complicated, by the way.
It is, and it's a little needlessly complicated, to be honest with you, but it's just the nuance, and it's not as scary once you've been through the rhythm of the road a few times. But the first time you see it, you want to make sure that you've read that contract. You want to make sure that you really understand what you are providing for your clients.
Yeah, that's interesting, Andrew, because I remember when you were running the TPA before you came to work with me, you explained if a TPA had 100,000 claims a month that had to reimburse and they had a 1% error rate, that means you only pissed off 50 people a day.
Round numbers, but you're not wrong. Yeah. Yeah. And again, this is something that happens to people. Nobody wakes up and says, boy, I can't wait to have a liver transplant.
Right.
This is something that is a very significant event in their lives. So if we're starting to knock on doors and say, hey, can you prove that Don was employed on this day? Understand the request. The request is the medical stop loss carrier asking you to confirm that your plan document is being followed accurately.
Because this is a person 6 steps removed from the claimant. Everything's de-identified largely at this point in time. So it's not a personal question. It's not an intrusion in their private life. It's without eligibility, there is no reimbursement. That's the first cornerstone.
You're absolutely right, Don. One of the biggest things that we will see with all of this is that it is an ongoing process. It is a conversation between the administrator and the carrier, between the consultant and the administrator, and the plan sponsor and the consultant. I mean, it takes a village.
Hold on a second. Plan sponsor is the employer, right? That's a fancy word to say an employer?
99% of the time, but technically correct is the very best kind of correct.
99 times out of 100 is correct.
Yes, yes. So as we're looking at all of this, it becomes very important that you understand the process, you understand the needs, and most importantly, you understand how the plan sponsor, the employer, gets the money that they are due from that contract.
Because why pay premiums if your claims aren't going to be reimbursed? That's the first tenet is you're paying premium to get the claims reimbursed.
Exactly. So for all the chaos and excitement, all the amendments, all the acronyms, all the jargon, just remember these 3 things. First and most important, read your contracts. As a consultant, working with your plan sponsors, make sure you understand what is going on within those terms. Secondly, read your reports. Know when a claim is going to be filed. Know when a claim has been filed. Understand what steps are needed to satisfy that claim and get the reimbursement for your clients. And most importantly, know the people you're working with. Have confidence in them, have great communication with them, and set expectations realistically. The contracts work. People get the reimbursements. The first time it's scary. So make sure that you have great communication with them and that they are getting the policy that they purchased.
As complicated as this stuff is, it's still fun to me, Andrew, and remembering that we started as a vendor relationship and now we're friends. That's the way these things are supposed to evolve in the insurance industry. These become relationships.
Absolutely. Thank you for joining us today on This Stuff's Complicated. We'll see you real soon.
Take care.